Hi everyone, can you hear me? Yes. Thank you.
Mic check one, mic check two, mic check Chuck. Chuck, if I could Chuck, where's Chuck?
I hear you.
Where you at, Chuck? I see you there. I see you got the beautiful background, buddy. You're
Yes.
chilling. You're chilling. I'm enjoying the view. I'm enjoying the view. Just letting you know.
Oh, thank you.
You know, Chuck, one day my wife will let me out of the house and maybe to the backyard. You know, one day, brother, one day.
Well, mine's gonna let me inside the house. It's the opposite.
Oh, you got a tougher road, buddy. Much tougher road.
Sarah is working on some technical issues. She'll be on with us shortly.
Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to express my support for all of the protesters out there. fighting the good fight. I have a song from the 80s that really gets to me every time I hear it. I know it's corny, but it's a good song. So hope you guys enjoy it, you know? I think Elva will get a kick out of it. It's only for 10, 15 seconds. But, you know, here we go. Enjoy.
There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You know, I could play more music videos to entertain you. I mean, you know, Chuck's over there looking gloomy. Hey, Chuck, you need some music, buddy? I got some good. I'm a good DJ, brother. I can spin a few. No?
Sure.
You have any preference? I'm a big rap and country guy myself.
Yeah, country's my go-to usually, but I'm pretty diverse.
Well, you know, I've been to low places, if you know what I mean.
Sarah's having trouble.
Sarah's still having technical difficulties. She just called me right now, so she can hear everything. She just can't when she speaks. Nobody can hear. So right now I have her on speaker on my side, and then to vote, she's gonna do the voting through the messenger. So that way there's a record of it. And then if they're able to figure out along the way, then she'll kind of transition back into the meeting. Everybody's okay with that? They're good? Good. Okay, so we're gonna come back to open session. Are we recording now or? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna come back to open session. There's nothing to report since nothing was voted on. So we're gonna move forward into receiving hearings of individuals desiring to address the board. Do we have anybody that submitted any comments?
I have public comments. We also have some comments on board policies.
Okay, are the comments directly for the items of the agenda, or is it something else?
I have several items or several comments on 7.1 and a comment on 7.2, but I also have one public comment.
Okay.
And then I have the message from SRTA.
Okay, so maybe the ones that are specifically on the items, we'll hear those right before the item comes up. And then if you just want to read the one that's just the general, that has nothing to do with the on the board agenda.
You want that one read right now?
Yes.
Okay. This one says, "Dear board members and Superintendent Ryan, I am a lifelong resident of Salinas and I would like to express my concern that schools will reopen in the fall before it is safe to do so. Without a vaccine or at least adequate testing and contact tracing, I worry that schools will become hotbeds of transmission as children infect families throughout Salinas, which is already the hot spot of the county. Monterey County has not met all of the governor's performance metrics for reopening. The number of new cases reported over the last 14 days is 77 per 100,000, while the governor's performance metric is a fraction of this number, 25 cases. The number of cases in Monterey County continues to increase exponentially. We all want life to go back to normal. Please do not make the mistake of making a bad situation worse by reopening schools before it is safe to do so. Now is the time to plan for quality online learning rather than forcing a reopening that will likely have to be reversed. Again, putting schools into a reactive, urgent closing without adequate preparation. Now is the time to get all students internet access and for teachers to plan high-quality online education, rather than having to scramble amid an outbreak and rapid closing in the middle of the school year. Sincerely, Rosina Anderson."
Okay, thank you. Because that's the only one that has to do with the board agenda, right?
I believe so. The comments are coming into our email, and so I think most of what's left is for policies.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you very much. We're going to move forward to 2.0, consider approval of consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve 2.0?
I make a motion to approve.
All motions. Can I get a second?
I second that.
Okay, how about seconds?
Alan.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye, Captain.
Sarah? Sarah says aye as well. Passes 5-0. Okay, we move on to 3.0, reports from districts, organizations, or councils.
I have the message from SRTA.
Okay, go ahead and read that.
It says, "Dear board members, we are very happy with the progress we have made during the regular negotiations process the past few months, namely creating a new article for teacher safety. We look forward to wrapping up a few more articles before we approach negotiating reopening the schools. As we look at what our teachers, students, and families will need, our students' needs are at the forefront of our plans. Although no one knows at this time what exactly the learning environment will look like in the fall, we have a few things we'd like the board to consider. We feel it'd be helpful to push back the start date for students to allow 1 to 2 weeks of training for teachers on the new guidelines and technology, specifically online curriculum they will be using. Another week for teachers to work with parents regarding the new guidelines for safety at school, as well as technology training, so they can feel confident with helping their students learn when we return to distance learning. We feel this extra time before students begin would help us get a message to the parents and confirm that they will be able to follow the guidelines that are constructed during the collaboration process between the unions and the district. As always, we value the relationship and constructive conversations we are able to have with the district, as well as with you board members. Thank you for what you do for our students, family, and staff. Signed, Kate Sover, SRTA President.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other ones?
That's the only ones from the unions.
Okay, we'll move on to 3.2 reports from school principals, directors, departments. And Tim, if you can kind of have them in the order that you like.
Okay, we'll start with Chuck.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just a couple things to report. Meal counts are down in June after the last day of school, kind of as expected. It was going to go one way or another, I guess, and they are down. We're doing about half of what we were doing at the end of the school year, so approximately 1,440 meals. I have been keeping in contact with the food bank, and they have come to us with a proposal of they're going to be able to distribute groceries to the community for us. It won't take any of our staff to do so. They just need our sites, basically. So they're able to do it in June and July. So we tentatively are looking at starting next week. The way it would work is they would be 3 days a week, 1 day at Bolsono's, 1 day at New Republic, and 1 day at Santa Rita. They would deliver the meals, or the groceries themselves, set up at 1:30 and serve between 2 and 3. We gave them kind of a rough idea of how many families are coming to each of our schools, and they're going to set up for roughly 300 bags of groceries or boxes of fruit, whatever they have in their inventory, basically. National Guard and the food bank staff is going to be helping them distribute. They, of course, said district volunteers are welcome, so if we wanted to reach out, we could ask anybody in the district to volunteer if they wanted to, but they do have it staffed with National Guard and food bank staff. The one thing, and I've been working with Victor on this, is they do need bathroom access to our sites, so as long as we can provide them that, then it should not be an issue. And then lastly, we don't have to necessarily come up with a yes or no today, but we need to start thinking about if we're going to continue serving in July or not. Breakfast and lunch the same way we're doing, or if we're going to modify it or not serve in July. So just something to start thinking about.
Okay, go ahead, Neil, I'm sorry.
First of all, I want to say, Chuck, great job as always leading our community. But this is more directed to Tim. Tim, are we doing enough outreach to our community through our parent base and making, we have the dialers, we have the emails, but I'm not really seeing any of them, too many. I mean, other districts are just calling relentlessly day after day to remind people that, hey, we have food, we have this availability of the food bank, so what are we doing as a district to make sure we're consistently reminding our parents and our students through whatever method possible to make sure that they understand they can pick up lunch every day, Monday through Friday, at those 3 locations? Can we be relentless? I would like to see dialers go out at least 2-3 times a week over and over and over again, if possible.
Yes, we can do that, and we can start on that next week, and then Chuck, when we make a decision on July, we can get that information out as well. Yep, we will.
Yeah, that's great. And then in terms of the food bank, I mean, that's just information that just came out today. So we definitely, another thing that they asked of us is that if we can push the for the parents to know and the community to know about that. So we're definitely going to reach out about the food bank starting tomorrow.
You know what would make me happy is if I'm getting complaints from parents is telling me, hey, you keep calling me to give me free food for my kids. That is a good complaint I want to hear.
Okay, Victor. Are you there, Victor? I saw you earlier.
Sorry about that. Can
Okay.
everybody hear me? Okay. I had troubles turning on my microphone. Nothing majorly new in the MOT department. However, I've been working with HR on getting maintenance grounds and custodial staff to return to work full time. And this is in order to address most of the preventative maintenance and deferred maintenance projects that we do have. And for custodial, it would be like the deep cleaning and disinfecting again of the classrooms and the sites, getting ready for our August start date. And that's pretty much it.
Any questions from the board?
Okay, Nadine.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. We just finished the 5th day.
Rosa needs.
Are you guys hearing an echo? Well, we've officially run out of meeting space in the Gavilan View Library. We've got people everywhere. Sorry about that. Rosa's gonna adjust a little bit so that I can get these items. So we just finished our 5th day of extended school year, which is for students with disabilities. I got a report today from the teacher in charge and everything has gone very well, very smoothly. We're pleased with that. I believe we have between 10 and 12 students engaging in ESY, and it's all a distance learning model, and it includes related services as well for those particular students. I think we have a couple latecomers that called to see if they could get in. Of course, we're happy to include students right away. There was no deadline. Some students are participating for a portion of the time, and due to other family commitments, and so we'll take latecomers into the system as well. Our SELPA, our Special Education Local Planning Area, Kenyon Hopkins, he's the executive director of that program. He has developed weekly focus meetings via SELPA, and sends out an agenda, and it's a really great forum, and it allows special education directors to come in and review topics of concern that we have, and how we're going to address the issues that we're going to face come August. And the biggest concern right now is assessment, the assessment process for students, and some of the systems and the protocols that we use may have to be adjusted because we're assessing students for their needs in an educational environment, not necessarily their home environment. So there's concern with validity with assessments, and how are we going to proceed that in a way so that the results are valid and we can provide the right assessments or the right services for students. We've begun some hiring processes for SDC positions we have open, and I'm supporting principals through that process. I worked with Bolsomos today a little bit. We did some interviewing, and we'll also be working on an SDC preschool position that we have as well. Interestingly enough, because of the situation, IEPs are still continuing. I'm attending a few IEPs. Usually at this time of year, it kind of slows down, but it's still happening due to COVID-19, and also transition meetings, whether it's a transition in programming or a transition to high school or a transition to another school site. There are still some loose ends that need to be finalized. And what we want is that each student that we have, I want every student that we are responsible for to start off their school year August 5th in the placement where they were supposed to be. And just because we were under closure or we've been overloaded with IEPs, I don't think that it's fair that we continue that meeting in August when school's starting. So we're working hard in the department. I'm going into IEPs regularly to make sure these transition meetings are complete and that all of our students are in the appropriate placement and receiving the services that they're entitled to, but also get the same start to a first day of school like every other student. So we're getting real close. That's all I have to report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Okay, Rosa.
I think she's still setting up, Tim. She ducked behind me, so you might want to ask her one more time.
Okay.
I'm here. Sorry, I have to move rooms. We are at the GB library, so I have to run to another room. I do have a lot of updates. I do have the public hearing today for the July 1st budget for the 2020-2021. And that's on one of my agenda items. So I'll go in detail more forward when it's my turn. And I will be providing my updates there. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Rosa. And then Becky.
Thank you. So our human resources liaison started working this week. So we have a new member to the HR team, and she has dug in right away and is in communication with the new hires, making sure that they're ready, everything's in, and we can process them so that they're good to go when we start school in August. Also, we are continuing our negotiations with SRTA tomorrow, so Melissa and I will be on that as part of the district negotiating team. We're excited that things are moving forward. We've come to tentative agreements on several articles, and so we're looking forward to tomorrow's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Melissa.
Well, my biggest piece of news for the board is that Tony Thurman released CDE's guidance document yesterday. It's a 62-page document called Stronger Together about reopening California schools. It has lots of essential questions that districts should consider in developing their own reopening plan. So as we move forward and work with our different employee bases on creating reopening plan for the different possibilities, we will be looking at considering all of those essential questions that CDE has sent out as guidance.
Thank you, and that's it for the director's reports. So go ahead, take it.
Okay, we move on to reports of board activities and the meetings attended. Want to start off with Neil?
Thank you. Just a couple of items. First is I've had a number of phone calls, a number of contacts with teachers as well as parents concerning, they're basically similar issues on the teacher side. I'll talk about it later on in our docket. But right now, I want to talk about the concerns a lot of parents are having based on their comments. You know, there's a lot of fear out there, and I just want to make sure that the parents understand that our number one concern is safety, safety, safety. And we're always going to have that as the overriding concern regarding whatever type of hybrid system or schooling or distant learning system we come up with. So I just want to let everyone know out there that, hey, you know, we always want to cite on the air of safety for our students, but we need to make sure that our students are getting the education that they rightfully deserve. So I just want to let the people know that, you know, that is our foremost concern. Second is, as a board member, you know, race relations has come to the forefront finally, and hopefully to a point where actual change can occur. I think the whole world, you know, acknowledges the fact that we have a huge mountain to climb. When we started this meeting, I played a video of one of my favorite videos back in the 80s, and that was We Are the World. And I know it might seem corny, but to me, that was a video that, you know, had promise that said, hey, we as a world can come together and solve our problems. And that was over 3 decades ago. And here I am today, faced with major issues regarding race relations, and not a damn thing has been done. So I'm in fully support of the movement. I'm fully support of looking at different avenues of solving the racial issues that are being transgressed across our nation and the world. And I think we as a school board need to reaffirm our commitment to all of our students, regardless of any distinction or differentiation based on race, color, income. It doesn't matter. You know, we are board members. So I just want to make sure that that's out there as a public statement. You know, for me, as I was born in Africa, I'm an Indian American. You know, my parents are from India. You know, I've seen different racism through the years as growing up. And my always hope was, hey, you know, we need to stop the racism. We need to stop the stereotyping. And here it is, 30 years after I graduated high school, and still it hasn't changed as much as it should have. So I just want to get that out there. I think we need to start the conversation. And I hope this doesn't end today. I hope it continues and we build upon it. And so that's it. I just wanted to make sure that comment went out there as far as what my position is. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Sarah, did you want to say anything through my phone or speaker? Or chat? Give her a moment. Sarah, are you there? Okay, cool. Yeah. Hello, Sarah? Oh, okay. Go ahead. Okay, I think she might be having some technical. Okay. Yeah, we'll move on to Elba, please. And then we'll see if she can get back on.
Thanks, Jacob, but no, I don't have anything to report tonight. I haven't been to any meetings, I haven't been to any schools, and I've been sheltering in place, so, but that's it for me.
Thank you, Elba. Paro?
Hello, everyone. Yes, thank you, everybody, for all your commitment and efforts during this time. I did attend the Bolsa Knolls drive-by, drive-through graduation, and it was very, very nice. I was out there with them for about maybe 2 hours, and I know that the staff and Mr. Gutierrez and teachers, it was very nice to see everybody recognize the students, and family members were very happy to have that form of recognition. So thank you, everybody, and it was a very nice event to be at for a little while. I kind of want to echo the messages of Mr. Patel on regarding the issues as a board member, as an adult, as a mother, as a woman, as an educator. These times are definitely concerning to all of us. One of my biggest advocacies in education has been equity, and it's obvious that we're seeing the disparities in education and equity, and based on districts, based on district lines and what have you. And so I look forward to seeing how our district will address those issues of equity. And one of the ones right now being, you know, one of the biggest ones is with the online learning, the internet access, and for families that did not have that internet access and what have you. I know our district worked really hard, and I appreciate you guys really, because I know that a lot of you went and called families one-on-one and helped them get the internet one-on-one. So just definitely as a concerned member of just our community, I look forward to seeing how maybe we can implement some cultural and diversity education into our system.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. I also want to reaffirm the commitment also to what's going on in the world right now, and I think what Neil, that song always does remind me of bringing everybody together again. One thing that was brought to my attention, I know was a lot of the communication and is the robocall. I've had some parents kind of reach out to me and record the message, and I've heard a couple times, especially the Spanish version at times. It's sometimes a little bit challenging to understand, especially if the parents that don't normally speak Spanish. So I don't know if another way of trying to get messaging out there besides the robocall or type of voice that kind of goes out, or the speed, just something to look into. And Sarah, did you want to say anything again? No, somebody able to get her. Sarah? I can hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you. So I'm probably getting off the
Jacob, Jacob, this is Nicole. If you mute your computer, you should be able to hear on the phone. Oh, that's not, no. Never mind, that's not gonna work. It's because you've got two devices on and you're, sorry to interrupt.
We'll move on to the next item. Okay, we're gonna move on to 4.0, public hearing regarding the district's budget.
Okay, so can you guys hear me? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the budget presentation for the July 1st. And so we've been working a lot this last few weeks on getting this together. When we put together the July 1st budget, we're also working on the 1920 budget for this current year. So when you see the big report, usually in the past, what I do is I bring the report is over 100 pages to the board when I'm doing my presentation, but because today we're doing it online, I did email you the packet and the PowerPoint presentation by email, and you should have it by now. The full report of the budget is also available in the website. It was posted on June 5th for public inspection, and now it's the full report completed and it is available on the website today, so you can take a look at it if you are interested in knowing more. So this is my first time doing the presentation online, so I'm gonna try to share my screen and my PowerPoint. I won't be able to see your faces, so if you have any questions, please just stop me during this process. So I'm gonna start now. And sharing my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen, my PowerPoint?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this as a full screen. Okay, so this is the first slide. So just as a reminder, this is, again, the report for the first, I would say the first draft of the July 1st, or the July 1st budget, or the budget for the 2020-2021. And I say the first draft because most likely information is gonna change once the governor signs the budget in July. We are planning for a 45-day budget revision. So as we get more information from the state, we will be revising those numbers, and we also gonna be providing that information to you, so you have the most up-to-date information. So this is the budget assumptions based on the May revised governor's state budget. The main and the big change you probably, I do want to point out, and that you already know because I shared this during the last meeting, is the 10% budget reduction in the state funding for LCFF revenue. As you can see, for the year 2020-2021, we have 0% COLA, and which includes a 10% reduction and then 0% COLA for the 2 subsequent years. We are using the district enrollment for this year and the ADA as well, because that's the latest information that we have. And we are using the there's CalPERS rates based on the May revised governor's state budget proposal. So as you know, we are facing with 2 major issues during this year and the coming years. It's not only a financial issue, but it's also, as you know, obviously a health issue. So this is one of the very, very challenging situations that we have now. It's really asking us to do more, more regulations, more rules to follow due to COVID-19, but at the same time, our revenue is decreasing. So we have to do more with less resources. And not only that, our expenses keep going up every year, like special ed costs, step-in column, and increases on operating expenses, benefit increases such as CalSTRS and CalPERS that we usually have every year. So it is very challenging, not only for our districts, but for all the districts all around California. So on the next slide, I just want to point out that there are one-time funds on the 1920 that are not included on the 2020-2021, and you're going to see a drop in revenue as well as some of the expenses. So just to summarize, this year we received a $60,000 grant for COVID-19, Senate Bill 117. This grant money is specifically to be used to help out with anything, protective equipment, supplies, or anything that we need in relation to COVID-19. I can tell you the department that is needing more support right now, and the department that is using about 90% of this $60,000 is the cafeteria fund. They have been using extra hours to be able to provide meals on the daily basis. So this money is being used, most of it, by the cafeteria fund. The next one-time fund that we received was the school electric bus grant for $428. We received that grant on 2019-20, and I took it out on the next year because, again, it's only one-time grant. And then, like I mentioned to you before, we also received a special ed grant for $486,000. That money comes in to our general fund and is to be specifically used for special ed cost increases. So you won't see that on the next year as well. This year, we received an equipment assistance grant for the cafeteria fund for about $66,000. This money was an expensive application that the director of the cafeteria had to apply. I know that they've been applying on the last years. And this year I worked very close with Chuck, and we got very, very lucky to actually get the grant this time. He used the funding to purchase coolers and a transportation van to help out with the delivery for food services from the Central Kitchen to all the other locations in the schools. And I know that it might seem like, why are you spending money on that? Like I said, this was a grant specifically to be used for equipment, and we applied for the grant back in 2019. So we are very, very, very happy that we got the grant and we were able to utilize that money. The other one-time money that we received started in 2018-19. We got half on the prior year, and this year we got the other half. This is for the low performance student block grant. That money is being used to support the middle schools for the AVID program. So you won't see that on the next coming year, but they do have money available that is rolling over, and it's gonna be they're gonna be using that on the next subsequent years. Okay, so I really try my best as you know, the budget report is over 100 pages, so I'm trying to really summarize everything into 10 PowerPoint slides, so I'll try to do my best. I'm gonna talk about the most big impacts, and just to kind of like summarize, don't wanna go into every detail, but after the presentation, I'll be available for the questions. So the big impact, if we start looking at the revenue, so if we start looking at the revenue, I did put the budget for the second interim. Like I said, I am working on 2 budgets at the same time. I'm working on the estimated actuals for 2019-20, because we want to have the most up-to-date information. It's going to be so useful because those numbers, we use it for the next year as well. And it also helps us to see how much money we'll have at the end of the year and how much reserves we'll have going forward. So as I'm working on the 2 budgets, I'm gonna be talking right now just about revenues. So the difference between the second interim to the revised budget that we did for 19-20 is pretty much we got new allocations from CDE and new allocations for the grants that we received at MCOE. So as you can see, our revenue went up by a little bit over $200,000 from the second interim to estimated actuals. And then going to the next year, to the 2020-2021, you see on the last column, there's the difference. The difference is taking our current budget that we have right now for 19-20 and our budget for the 2020-2021. So the difference is pretty much, as you can see on the top line, the LCFF funding, that 10% reduction is equivalent to $3.1 million in reduction in revenue. And then the other big reduction is for other state income. That's a little bit over $500,000. And like I said, that one is due to the one-time funding, like the special ed funding that we won't have on the next year. And also, the special ed funding and the other one-time funding that I went back. Let me see if I can try to go back on the others. Slide, the COVID-19 for $60,000 and the low performance student grant. So that's why you see a big decrease in funding there on the new year. When we look at the section for the expenses, I did share with you during the last meeting that I got together with all the department directors, and we're really focused on how can we maintain the same services in the classroom, but at the same time, how can we be more efficient with our funding? How can we do more with less? So when looking at all the departments and the expenses, I revised the budget for the expenditures, and we were able to identify some savings. As you can see on the very bottom line, we have $1.4 million. And that is because the one-time funding for the special ed is not going to be spent this year. We're going to use it for next year because we already got the bill back for the 2020-2021 is increasing by a little bit over $500,000. So remember that one-time money has to be used for one-time expense. We cannot use it for ongoing. But since next year we're experiencing deficit spending and short on revenues, we are going to use that one-time money to help out with the increase on special ed. This is for the students that we have at MCOE. So that's where the money is gonna go. We identified about $400,000 from all the departments, savings in contract services, pretty much expenses that we're not gonna use this year. So I was able to reduce that budget. We also took off the OPEB liability. As you know, that we've been funding that liability on the last years, and we are gonna be okay if we don't do it for the next couple of years because we've been doing really good, and it's not a requirement right now per ed code. So because we reduce that expense, we end up with a surplus. right here at the bottom on the, oops, that one back, on the 1920. Okay, so the difference from the 1920 to the 2020-21, as you know, salaries and for certificated, for classified and benefits, they go up every year due to the step-in column. There is a reduction for books and supplies. That's because we also reduced one of the funds for one-time money that we got, since we're not getting that money in the 2020, 2021. We're reducing the revenue and the expense again. So that's why you see a big decrease on books and supplies. And then on the 6,000 for capital outlay, that's pretty much a decrease for 428,000. That's for the electric bus grant. We're not getting the revenue and we're not booking the expense. So that's why you see a big decrease on the expenditure side. The 524,000, that's for the special ed increase that I was just talking about, that comes from NCOE, and that's the new allocation. Overall, when you look at the bottom line, you see that our general fund is looking at a $3 million deficit spend. So this is pretty much everything that I talked about in a summary. We're looking at the revenue minus your expenses. That's your that's your increase or decrease. So for the next year, if we don't make any changes on positions, if we leave everything how we have it right now and we don't make any reductions and keep it just how we've been doing it, we're looking at a $3 million deficit spend. And then I also point out at the bottom section of the table, that's our ending fund balance. And I do want you to see that at the second year, again, if we don't make any reductions now, our deficit spend increases by $4.8 million. And then on the third year out, really important, I want you to look at the ending fund balance at the bottom. If we kind of like ignore this and we don't take any action on reducing expenditures, or if we don't get more funding from the we are ending with the negative ending fund balance, which that puts the district in a very difficult situation because we would not be able to meet the minimum reserve, which is a 3%.
Rosa, I have a question at this point.
Yes.
Whenever I look at projection, the number one thing I look at is assumptions. So can you go back to the assumptions page before we come back to it?
Assumptions?
Yeah, I was waiting for it. Right there. Now, I noticed that in 21, 22, as opposed to 2021, you had a minus 10% reduction on the LCFF. My concern is that we're not being conservative enough. In other words, if it was me, I'm just thinking out of the box here. For 2021, 2022, I would have factored in some amount of reduction as well as a further one in 22, 23. So now when we go back, can you go back to the current slide you were on?
Yes.
So the revenue at the same for 2021, 21, 22, 22, 23. My concern is that, wouldn't it be more conservative to put in a deflating assumption in there for maybe 4 or 5%, whatever it may be, because I think that the risk is higher of that coming in lower in terms of actual LCFF funds, or actual per student funds. So for me, I think, I love the assumptions, but the one issue I have is, I think the revenues are going to be lower in 2021, 22, and 22, 23. That's based on, the presumption that the current economy is going to take a while to come back. Sales revenue is going to be low for the 1, 2, 3 years out. And when we have to make decisions based on projections as a board member, I will always want to side on being more conservative and making sure that when we look at revenues, I'm looking at not necessarily the best case, but probably the moderate or the worst case before I make decisions. So I'm just curious about that.
Yes, thank you. And I totally agree with you 100%. The assumptions that you see on the first, probably the first slide, this 0% COLA and the LCFF reduction, these assumptions come from the state. So I'm using their numbers and I'm using their percentages based on what they propose on the May revise. Like I said, things are changing constantly. We are planning a 45-day budget revision. By that time, in late July, early August, we're gonna have an actual budget that is gonna be signed by the governor. So we're gonna have a more clear scenario of our budget. Right now, like I said, I'm using these numbers because everything that I use is linked to what they are telling us to use from the County Office of Ed and from the School Services of California and these agencies that help us. But I do totally agree with you. We can totally do that, and we'll have a better picture once the governor signs the budget. So even though, like you mentioned, even though having this budget projection with a very positive assumption that it's only going to be 0% COLA and positive scenario, knowing that it's probably going to look worse, even though like that, we are looking still at not even being able to meet the minimum reserve. So once I revise these numbers and I have more clear guidance, if those come in, if the guidance is to use a negative COLA again, then you will see more increase on the deficit spend. So the numbers will look worse than they look right now. Yes.
Thank you, because once again, if given the choice of having optimistic numbers and it coming in worse, or going with the worst case scenario and having it come out better, I know that the second one is what I would hope for as a district that we try to follow through on regarding our decision making.
Definitely, and you will be seeing that on the 45-day budget revision. So I'm going to be working on that because I know that information is going to change. So I'll definitely look into that as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So I'm going to move forward. If anybody has any more questions on this slide, if not, I'll move forward. You can stop me anytime. So this is pretty much what I was talking about. Because we don't have, we have reserves for this year, but it's something definitely that we don't want to ignore, because if we ignore it, we don't do any reductions in expenses and we don't get more funding, then as you can see on the third line where it says minimum reserve, which it will be 3%, it's a no. So that's pretty much what the county office is going to be looking at and what the state is going to be looking at to make sure that we maintain the minimum reserve. In this case, not doing anything, we wouldn't qualify for the 3%. Okay, so this is just the unrestricted ending fund balance for the 2020-2021. As you can see, because we are projecting a deficit spending, pretty much all the money in the ending fund balance is going to be used for increases on special ed, the required 3% reserve, increases on stipend column, increases on benefits, and increases on operating expenditures. So every year, or cost goes up, for example, for services such as frontline, where employees enter their absences, for audit reports, for actuarial reports, all those services obviously go up by a percentage, or financial system as well. We paid every year an increase. So that's what we're going to be using or ending fund balance pretty much to cover for the deficit spends for the increases of the cost. Here, this is a summary for the Child Development Fund. There was not a lot of changes here. This projection, the 2020-21, is based on the new contract that we got for this new year. So that's reflected there. There is a reduction for $2,000. This is a local grant that child development receipts from MCOE. We don't know if that's gonna be available next year. It is a local grant, so I took that off, and you'll see this in all the funds, you know, the salaries, for the salaries and benefits, they go up due to the second column. This is the cafeteria fund. As you can see, the difference on the revenue for the new year is the $66,000, which is the grant that we received as a one-time grant. So I took that out from our revenue, and I also decreased that in our expenses. And again, salaries and benefits go up for the second column. This is a summary for the deferred maintenance fund, and this is for the board approved funds for facilities and repairs. So our projections for estimated actuals change based on the expenses that have been done this year. So I revised the budget, and we have estimated to end up with a $1.1 million that's gonna roll over for next year. And again, this is for the board approved funds that took place, I believe that was in 18-19. And the MOT department does have a plan for these expenses. It's pretty much to do repairs for all the facilities at the district wide that they need to be done. So this is the Fund 20 fund, the Fund 25. This is for the developer fees. This is for the fees that if there's any construction around the area, they pay fees to the district. So this is pretty much aligning to our actuals that we received this year. This is where the purchase was for the portables. So as you can see, all the money was spent out on the 19-20 year. We don't know if there's gonna be any new constructions for the 2020-21 yet as a fact. So there's no revenue and no activity in that fund for the next year. As we get more information, I think we're gonna be updating these numbers. So for the Fund 35 and 40, there's no activity. The Form A is a summary of the district's ADA, and Form SIAI and SIAE, they represent the summary for inter-fund activities, and criterion standards gives you pretty much the analysis for the whole budget, and then you have the multi-year projections in the TRC, which checks for any errors, or if anything is no balance, we would get a technical check review list, and that is clean. That's pretty much what I have as of now, and I'm gonna stop. Unless you have any questions, I'll leave this open, the PowerPoint open. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
I just want to thank you, your expertise regarding budget and forecasting. So, thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to the next report.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? No, thank you for sharing this as well, so those are public. If there's none, do we have to approve anything, Tim, or is it just,
Yeah, you approved to put this on for a vote, to approve the budget at the next board meeting.
okay. So then, do we need a motion to put this on the board agenda for next meeting? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can I get a motion, to put this item on the next, board agenda for the next board meeting to vote on?
I make a motion to approve to put it in the next budget meeting, agenda.
I second that, Jacob Alvin.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye, Captain.
Aye, and Sarah's. He says aye as well, so 5-0. Okay. Move on to, item 5.1. And that's being presented by HR.
I have one item tonight, and that is our annual declaration of need for fully qualified educators. This is an annual document that we need to submit to CTC, stating our anticipated hiring needs for qualified teachers for the upcoming school year. So you can see a list of what we are anticipating we need based on the resignations and teachers retiring last school year in preparation for the 2021 year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Motion to approve?
Okay. Motion to approve by Neil, can I get a second?
Second, Alvin.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and then Sarah just put a comment aye as well. So motion passes 5-0. Now we move forward to 6.1. Nicole, if there's any comments on any of the items from the public, please let me know as well.
Well, I only have comments on 7.1 and 7.2 at this point.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Okay, who's presenting on 6.1?
I believe that's Melissa's item. I don't know if she stepped, sorry, Becky.
She had just stepped away for a minute.
Sorry, it's just the annual renewal of our preschool contract for next school year.
Motion to approve?
Okay, motion by Neil, can I second?
I second. Amparo?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and Sarah? We're just waiting for Sarah to come in. Okay, preschool aye as well, Sarah, so that passes 5-0. Okay, move on to 7.1. So we'll do the presentation and then we'll do the public comments and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. We have a second meeting on the agenda tonight for the two brand new policies to go into our overall policy library. This is the second read as provided to me by legal. I believe that the concerns from SRTA were heard. I'm not involved in that particular level of discussions. At least after those discussions and concerns were heard, these are the recommendations that were presented to me by legal, and I provided the document where you can see the blackout and the revisions and to the public as well.
Okay, thank you, Nadine. Nicole, can you please read out the comments?
Yes, I'll get started. Becky has a couple that she's going to help me read as well. First one, good evening. I am a SRTA member who is attending this meeting. I am opposed to board policy 4113.5/4313.5/4313.5 working remotely and board policy 6157 distance learning. Because there has been no opportunity for a public forum for discussion, because the policies cannot be implemented unilaterally without bargaining. The policies have no standards for determining who may request remote learning. The policies would be adopted without teacher support. The policies do not promote an opportunity to create a meaningful approach to distance learning and remote teaching. The policies do not acknowledge that teachers will play a vital role in remote teaching and should be recognized as stakeholders in creating distance learning. And the policies cut teachers out of the decision-making process. And that's from Jennifer Alvarado. Next one, board members, I am opposed to board policy 4113.5/4213.5/4313.5 working remotely and board policy 6157 distance learning. Because the policies have no standards for determining who may request remote learning. The policies do not promote an opportunity to create a meaningful approach to distance learning and remote teaching. The policies do not acknowledge that teachers will play a vital role in remote teaching and should be recognized as stakeholders in creating distance learning. And the policies cut teachers out of the decision-making process, as they are being implemented unilaterally without bargaining and without any opportunities for discussion in a public forum. I hope you will consider teacher input and community discussion before implementing these policies. Sincerely, Ms. Eleanor Maurice. Becky, do you want to read a couple of yours and then I'll read the rest?
Sure. This one comes from Kate Stover, SRTA President. Dear board members, on behalf of our members, we are letting you know that we are very disappointed that the board is, at this time, considering a second reading of the proposed board policies. Board Policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely, and Board Policy 6157, distance learning. SRTA has issued a demand to bargain regarding the impacts of these policies, but we have not yet met with the district's negotiating team for reasons including our attempt to finish bargaining the current contract and to wait until we have a clearer understanding of what school reopening might look like. SRTA has three major issues which we would like the board to consider before Wednesday. Our first concern is the seemingly lack of transparency in adopting this policy. As you are well aware, this is a policy that can have substantial impacts on our working conditions, and if unilaterally imposed, we will need to consider filing an unfair labor practice. If the board intends to hear this item when teachers cannot attend a board meeting and cannot speak publicly, and cannot rebut the district's presentation and argument for approval, then we truly question the board's sincerity in wanting to hear our input. Indeed, given that teachers have strongly objected to the policy, holding this hearing with no ability for the public to be present seems to be a bit underhanded and a sneaky way to adopt an unpopular policy. At the very least, this item should be heard in a public forum where teachers and other employees can be heard in a public setting. Secondly, the district's legal representative, Lou Lozano, has informed us that this policy is not limited to teachers, but is intended for all district employees, and therefore should not be considered solely through the lens of the SRTA bargaining unit. Our question to the board is, how many employees, besides teachers, are actually involved in remote teaching? How many custodians can work from home? How many nurses' aides can work from home? How many yard duties or cafeteria workers can work from home? How many one-on-one aides or librarians can work from home? In point of fact, while Board Policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely, can apply to some district employees other than teachers, it would be a stretch to apply Board Policy 6157, distance learning, to any employees apart from teachers. Finally, we repeat the criticism we had when this policy was first brought to the board. Board Policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely. 1, there are no standards for who may request remote learning, how the request would be evaluated, the duration and guidelines for cessation of the request, or any way to contest the denial of the request. 2, the policy leaves open the possibility that compensation, benefits, and other conditions of employment might be changed for employees working remotely. 3, allows the superintendent to change the hours of work. 4, requires employees to keep track of hours worked. In parentheses, it asks timesheets for teachers. Board Policy 6157, distance learning. 5, there are no standards for evaluating employees. 6, the policy does not provide for actual bargaining. 7, the policy is silent as to how or when distance learning training will be provided and whether or not teachers will be paid for training. 8, the requirement that teachers provide regular communication to students and parents and guardians might affect hours of work to the extent that communication will most likely take place beyond regular working hours. 9, the policy permits the superintendent to pick courses, which is a violation of the union's right to consult over educational issues. These 2 board policies are flawed and unnecessary. SRTA wants to work with the district over all the concerns and complications implicit in distant learning and remote teaching. We see the upcoming school year as being challenging, exciting, and unique, and we anticipate being on the forefront as partners with our administrators and our board members to create a new standard in education. But please don't adopt flawed board policy, which has the potential to jeopardize our successful working alliance and conceivably derail our opportunity to work together to create a meaningful approach to new learning. If you are determined to adopt these policies, at least have the courtesy to consider the item at a public meeting in which we can publicly have our opinion heard. With respect, Kate Stover, SRTA President. And I have one more from Brenda Barrett Gutierrez. Good evening. I would like to make a comment regarding the added sentence to the board policy, working remotely. In quotes, when working remotely, unit members must be reachable at all times during their regular work hours and shall abstain from alcohol, marijuana, or illegal substances, end quote. Adding this beginning part of the sentence, when working remotely, unit members must be reachable at all times during their regular work hours. In my experience within the district, wording like this can and will be misinterpreted, and the intent will be missed. The section that states, must be reachable at all times during their regular work hours, must be removed. I will explain why. In the middle school, you have teachers who have prep periods. How will that work remotely? Our contracted lunch is uninterrupted. So for that 43 minutes, we do not need to be reachable because that part is not our work hours. And again, we are remotely working. So do we have a lunch period that we do not need to be reachable? There are bathroom breaks. There are our own children who need us during remote teaching. So how is this statement going to work? Again, this is another moment to consider. Should we be adopting this language before we even know what school will look like in the fall? Or will there be a slew of MOUs? We are professionals. Many of us work beyond our workday during the previous distance learning because our students were not awake during school hours. I had to adjust my time beyond the workday so that I could get in contact with many of my students. The email sent after 4 p.m. made me think I was a swing shift teacher. Does this sentence really need to be there? You should reconsider this statement. Must be reachable at all times during their regular work hours before you adopt these board policies. Thank you, Brenda Burr.
Okay, I still have more to read, so. Next one is from Mary O'Donnell. She says, Dear SRUSD board members, I am opposed to board policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely, and board policy 6157, distance learning, because the policy would be adopted without teacher support. Thank you for your reconsideration. Sincerely, Mary O'Donnell. Next one is from Karen St. Germain. She says, I'm a teacher, SRUSD teacher watching the board meeting. Jamie Gandara is here, and I support a task force with teachers for reopening schools. Good evening. I am an SRTA member attending this board meeting. I am opposed to board policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely, and board policy 6157, distance learning, because there has been no opportunity for a public forum for discussion. That's Jake Flores. Julie Johnson, I am a SRTA member in attendance of this virtual meeting, and I oppose the board policy regarding distance learning. Kate Dixon Clark, SRTA member here checking in. That's regarding the board policy. Carrie Rockoff, hi all, this is Carrie Rockoff. I am a member of SRTA. I am concerned with the adoption of your distance learning policy. I don't believe there has been any collaboration with SRTA. There are many issues that I encountered in my first experience with this, as I am sure many others also did. As a 36-year member of SRTA, as a speech pathologist, I would like a public forum to discuss this before adopted. Sincerely, Carrie Rockoff. Jody Lazda, good evening. I am an SRTA member in virtual attendance of this meeting. I am opposed to board policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely, and board policy 6157, distance learning. I oppose the policies for several reasons. The first one is a simple one. Due to the online structure of board meetings during the pandemic, there has not been an opportunity for live public discussion and comments. Submitting an email but not being able to respond in real time to a board member or vice versa is not the same as it would be in person. Another reason the policies are problematic is that they cannot be implemented unilaterally without bargaining. That is why SRTA put in a demand to bargain regarding the MOU. The policies also do not include standards for determining who may request remote learning. Teachers should be included in the decision-making process. We play a vital role in remote teaching, distance learning, and our input is valuable and relevant. Thank you for your consideration, Jody Ray Lazda. Taser Rosas says, hello, I am an SRTA member and oppose the board policy regarding distance learning. The union should be part of the bargaining process. Teacher input should be considered, respected, and heard. It is important that we be part of the planning process. Jill Lutz, SRTA member. Jill Lutz, I am expressing a concern that agenda item 7.1 is being voted on during a meeting in which teachers cannot be present to express their thoughts and concerns. With nearly 60 people currently watching on YouTube, there is great interest and concern over this item, a good indicator that many people would prefer that this be presented in a real public forum in order to personally address the board. Since adopting this board policy is not time sensitive, in addition to the difficulties we are having in hearing this live presentation, this item can be easily postponed to a later date. The policies do not acknowledge that teachers will play a vital role in remote teaching and should be recognized as stakeholders in the process. Thank you for listening. Alia Najim, I am opposed to board policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely, and board policy 6157, distance learning, as these policies do not acknowledge that teachers will play a vital role in remote teaching and should be recognized as stakeholders in creating distance learning. Greta Billman, I am an SRTA member watching this meeting. Thank you for all your hard work and caring for our students. Priscilla McDonald, good evening. I am an SRTA member attending this board meeting. Bernadette Ramirez, to the Santa Rita Union School District Board, I am opposed to board policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely, and board policy 6157, distance learning, because the policies cannot be implemented unilaterally without bargaining. Respectfully, Bernadette Rojas Ramirez. Jorge Quinones says, to whom it may concern, I am against the board policies 4113.5, 4213.5, etc. Briefly, we don't get a chance to discuss in an open fashion with public input. There is no negotiation bargaining between SRTA and SD board. It would be implemented with no teacher support or input. Thanks, Jorge Quinones. And then the last one from Christina Gold. I am opposed to board policy 4113.5, 4213.5, 4313.5, working remotely, and board policy 6157, distance learning, because there has been no opportunity for public forum for discussion, because the policies cannot be implemented unilaterally without bargaining. The policies have no standards for determining who may request remote learning. The policies would be adopted without teacher support. The policies do not promote an opportunity to create a meaningful approach to distance learning and remote teaching. The policies do not acknowledge that teachers will play a vital role in remote teaching and should be recognized as stakeholders in creating distance learning. The policies cut teachers out of the decision-making process. Sincerely, Christina Gould.
Is that the last one, Nicole?
I believe that's the last one.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Nicole, and
You're good.
thank you, the public and teachers for comments. Now we'll open it up to board discussion or for comments, questions.
I'm gonna go first. Is that okay, Diego?
Yeah.
What I wanna say is, over the last 2 weeks, I received number of contacts from teachers, staff, but especially teachers through text, through phone calls, and I hear you. I hear there's a major concern. And as a teacher myself in a neighboring district, Salinas Union High School District, I'm also scared. I'm also have a certain amount of fear of what this next school year is gonna look like. How am I going to teach remotely? What is my role? How can I get my input included into the decision-making process? So today I've heard a lot of comment about, hey, we're not getting input, we're not doing a public forum. But unfortunately, this is all we have. We have no other choice except hold our meetings through this online format. And yes, you do have the ability to comment, you have the ability to call board members, And so for me, this is the best we can do given the circumstance we're in. Now, regarding the board policy, I personally read line by line each and every part of this new framework on how to guide us through this remote learning that we inevitably have to deal with. Now, is it perfect? No. I went through there line by line. Are there some things that I personally, as an individual teacher, might object to? Yes. But as a board member, my role is to not put my personal input into the design that I might have regarding the board policy. I have to look out for the entire district. And we have a time constraint going on. We have to start school at some point. We have to have a board policy in place, at least a basic one, that helps address the direction and input of various stakeholder groups. But ultimately, we need to get that in there and done. Now, is it going to be perfect? No. I guarantee you, every single person who reads this, any teacher will say, I accepted this one thing, I accepted one thing. So how do we create a basic framework? You, as a union member, I have a contract in place, which my district has to follow. So do you. And so, yes, I do agree in bargaining. And when the bargaining comes up, this should be a point of view that should be expressed and should be included in your, in the negotiation process. Ultimately, I think we have a mechanism called MOUs that historically unions have used over and over to help address the changes that need to be made given the changing nature of teaching and the different situation year from year. So I personally think MOUs are good things. So I'm for that. I want to get the teachers' input. I want to make sure that the union is also part of making sure that the policy is implemented correctly and make changes as necessary. But we have to have some type of basic framework. So yes, do I want more teacher input? Of course. And to Mr. Ryan, when it comes to that, maybe creating a task force to see what a hybrid system might look like, or including some teachers on that committee, I'm totally for. But the bottom line is this is a scary time. These are uncertain times. And yet we need to have a framework in place that helps us guide through this time, and it has to be soon rather than later. So I do support implementing these board policies with the idea that it is a working, living document. This is not set in stone. We, as a board, we can change the policy as the need arises. And that's where the teacher input, hey, how's it going? How's it working? Are these policies being implemented correctly or not? What changes do you want to make? This is a living document. This is not set in stone. So as a board member, I appreciate the input. I appreciate the comments coming in. But also as a board member, I have to look out for the entire district and help create a roadmap. Now, is this roadmap going to be perfect? Of course not. And once again, it will be changed and altered with the input of all stakeholders and especially SRTA. So having said that, there's one last comment I have to say. The ultimate power of SRTA is the voting aspect. You know, elections are coming up. There's an issue of trust I'm hearing from a lot of teachers. Hey, Mr. Patel, what if the superintendent changes? What if the board member changes? And the next administration wants to make changes or doesn't apply the policies in the fashion that the previous administration did? Well, guess what? That's always a risk, no matter what situation you're in. So the ultimate power is for you to watch the board members, see what kind of decisions we're making. In the long run, are they making a difference? Are they supporting the end goal? And if you feel that, hey, we're not doing our job and we're supporting policies that at the end, after working it out, then please vote me out, vote any board member out, get the community together. You know, I'm willing to stick my neck out and say that. You know, we have been on this board, I know a lot of us have been here, and each and every time we've been very supportive of our teachers. Why? Because the majority of the board is teachers. And just as much as I'm scared in my district of what's going to happen, I'm sure there are many teachers in this district. But we have to trust the process. We have to trust the people we elect. We have to trust the representation of our union and the impact it can make on board members and selection superintendents, etc. So once again, this has been a very, very difficult issue during this trying, fearful times. And I think we're going to get past this. And I think yes, we'll have the adjustments made, but I think we'll come and grow and become better at the end of it, at the conclusion of it. And it'll be a growing process. So having said that, I thank you once again to all the teachers for all the input. Continue to make it, and I'll continue to make sure I fight for your rights and make sure things are implemented correctly and in a fair and equitable manner. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Does anybody else want to go next? Either comments or questions?
Can you guys hear me at this point?
Yes, you're good to go.
It only took an hour of troubleshooting while we were talking. I appreciate, like Neil did, all the letters and calls and texts. You know, I want to hear what people have to say. I want people to know we are on a short clock with this because we need this in place in order to reopen. This is not optional. And it's not like, oh, we could do it in the fall. They won't let us get to the fall. We can't reopen without procedures in place. I got a good question earlier in the week where somebody asked me if the district that I work for had implemented this, and yes, absolutely they did. And I'm gonna live and work under it the same way that you guys are. And I do feel like we're not potentially gonna need just one MOU this upcoming year. It just may be a process as we go forward and learn things. I mean, I really appreciated how teachers went above and beyond, you know, and I had many reports from my own district that I work for, as well as Santa Rita, about teachers working all hours, but it's like, we actually need to pull back and be able to figure out how to do this in a way that protects ourselves as well. And it's like, if some kid is not logging in when they're supposed to be, the solution to that is not us till midnight. The solution is that we need to treat that like a truancy issue, the way that we would if they were not in the seat, and create policies around that. So this board policy is going to be the beginning of a framework, and then we're going to need to figure out what is working or not working for the different groups and deal with that as it comes up. So I want people to continue to be engaged and to figure out, you know, what are the issues that are not working, and so we can deal with those one at a time. Thank you.
You want to take over the meeting, sir?
I don't actually, just because I'm still having some technical difficulties, but I am here both now by audio at least, and maybe video at some point.
Does anybody else want to go next? Or have any questions or comments about the policy?
I'll just, real quick, Jacob, I'd like to I want to reassure, first of all, a couple of things. Number one, we have a collective bargaining agreement in place. In any of the areas that collective bargaining agreement covers, those are the policies that we have to follow, unless there's another agreement reached through the negotiating process. And I heard a couple of teachers say that teachers weren't being engaged in negotiations, and I just want to reassure them that we are doing that. We've met twice now. And we aren't talking about this. Tomorrow, there's a negotiating session that's planned all day. This is going to be the centerpiece of those negotiations. And they will continue to be the centerpiece of negotiations until we address all these concerns that have to do with the areas that are covered under the collective bargaining agreement. And so, the process, but understand that we just they received our guidance on our reopening plan that we have to submit. One of the very first things that asked, has the district adopted a policy on learning? And right now, we can't say yes. That's one of the problems. But anything that has to do with some of the things like Ms. Burritt brought up, or that Kate brought up, those things that have to deal with the collective bargaining agreement, hours of work, pay, all that, those are all things that have to be addressed through that negotiation process that we're currently engaged in, and we will continue to engage in it until we resolve those issues. This policy will not deprive teachers of any of those rights that are guaranteed under the collective bargaining agreement as it's currently constituted. So, and that's pretty all I need. I just want to let them know, that's going to be our approach to it. Is if it's in the contract, we're going to abide by the contract. And if there's any questions that we have, we'll work them out through the negotiation process. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. I did read all the emails very thoroughly and also go through the board policies, and the biggest questions that I had as far as being bargained is this time sensitive, which was kind of brought up as well. And from what Tim and also legal counsel said is we can't open the school up without having a board policy. So that seems pretty time sensitive to me. The other concern I had, which was also raised up by a lot of the teachers, was whether this would trump whatever they had as far as their collective bargaining agreement. And from what we were told in this public comment time or the public reporting is that whatever is already negotiated or bargained supersedes this board policy. So really what it comes down to, reiterate what was said, is this is just a template to allow us to get to the next step. And then Tim has already assured us that teachers input and also part of the task force will be kind of bringing all those ideas in together to make sure we're a team, not only as the district staff, but also the teachers and all the bargaining units as well. So that was my biggest concerns that I brought up to Tim earlier on, was I did want to make sure that these concerns were addressed, because I remember being on the other side before I became a board member and wanting to understand, okay, is the board really taking this into consideration? So when I became a board member, that was a big concern for myself, was making sure I'm truly listening to what it is and really making an analysis. And in this case, I feel part of it is messaging. So a lot of teachers are concerned that this board policy is gonna hurt some of their rights, but just want to reiterate out there that your collective bargaining agreement takes precedence over this template that we're passing today.
Real quick, Jacob, also, and one of the problems with this is because we're so isolated, because we're segregated and balkanized into these little areas, and I haven't been able to get out and engage people face to face like I'm used to in the way I enjoy doing. And hopefully it'll change the next couple of weeks, and I'll be released to come back to work, and then I can meet and talk and have those conversations that have been, I think that part of it is really leading to a lot of this anxiety as well. So we're just going to continue to work through the negotiation process to make sure we resolve all these issues. that are a concern, with the collective bargaining agreement. So I'll get back to work as soon as I can, and we'll make sure that we start engaging people, the old-fashioned way, yes. So.
Thank you, Tim. Any other questions, comments from the board? Can I get a motion to approve 7.1? We can't hear you, Neil.
I think Alvaro wanted to say something, I'm not sure.
I just wanted to echo that, also myself being a teacher, your concerns are my concerns. When we got presented with this first reading, we went ahead and said that we would go with the second reading, under the understanding that there would be a task force created, representing the teachers and their voice. So I agree that, we need to move forward because of the time sensitive. I agree with points made, I trust again that the teachers will have a voice moving forward, that this is a live document. As things come out, things will change. Different guidances might come out that will change from 1 week to a month from now to 6 months from now. So trusting that will be, that the voices of the teachers will be heard, and that it is a document I would like to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Amparo. Any other final comments or questions?
Jacob, I just want to say thank you to all the teachers that submitted all their letters and their concerns. I totally get it. I'm a retired teacher now, but I totally get the concerns. I hear there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of uneasiness, apprehension. These are really scary times. Scary for us board members too, because we're making decisions and putting out board policies that we know what we have to do with this one. This like everybody else said, it's time sensitive, but I truly understand everybody's concerns. However, we do have to have this in place in order for us to move on. And like Neil said, it's a living document. We can all talk about it. I know that your concerns are, once the board policies are in place, we can't change them. Well, yes, we can, as long as we can sit and talk about it. But right now, it's impossible. I guess we can do a Zoom, but that's going to be a little bit of a hard thing to do these days, and especially since this has to be moved forward. So I just want to tell all the teachers and everybody concerned, we hear you. We really do hear you. So just trust us. I know that trust in the past has been hard for a lot of you, but I really think that it's going to be okay. So with that, I would have to say that we have to begin with this one policy, these two policies, or these several policies, and we just need to move on with this.
Yeah, I want to apologize. I earlier said we have 3 members of our board that are teachers. I want to correct for the record, we have 4. So Elva, I apologize. Otto, Sarah, we have 4 members. So, we do understand the concerns, and, and we're living those concerns, and we have lived those concerns. Thank you.
Okay, any other final comments or questions for staff? If none, can I get a motion to approve 7.1?
I make a motion to approve 7.1.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to item 7.2.
Yes, thank you. 7.2, addresses extra days for certificated management in order to be designated for special projects related to COVID-19. We have the position of district nurse and special education coordinator that are 195-day contracts for them. Under normal circumstances, I would not bring this item forth, but with the reopening plan involved in IEP compliance, we have a lot of moving pieces and a lot of discussion that needs to happen. I worked closely with HR as well as with business to make sure that we were following in the correct parameters. As it's stated in the information sheet, these dollars are not new dollars. These dollars were already approved in this year's budget. And because there were funds left over in other accounts, where it was simply a fund transfer to make this happen and give the extra days that are going to be needed to do the reopen plan, as well as make sure that we're in complete compliance as close as we can get before June 30th with all of our IEPs.
Motion to approve?
Can I get a second?
There's one public comment on this one. This is from Amy Ruckman. Good afternoon. Due to COVID-19, special education teachers have been asked to extend their work year and have only been offered the hourly rate. When asked if it was per diem, the response was no, it is voluntary, even though multiple days would be involved. On agenda item 7.2, will the district nurse and the special education coordinator be paid hourly or per diem? What is the breakdown in daily rates for both positions?
The rate is calculated on a per diem. Management does not, an hourly rate does not exist for certificated management. The per diem, I've got it over here in the calculations, and also the cost that's on the information sheet is also includes benefits, STRS, those pieces as well that I worked with Rosa to do it. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit tonight, sitting here waiting. Sorry about it. If you can't hear me, just give me a wave and I'll speak up. The district nurse position, the current daily rate is $390.33. And the current daily rate for special education coordinator is $533.65. I don't anticipate to have to go up to adding a number, the number of days we had in here. It was calculated off of 17 extra days on the contract. Meaning I'm not sure. I budgeted over because I know Rosa would prefer that I budget over and come in under. And in regards to the, either Sarah or Jacob, if you want me to comment on what certificated teachers were doing over the summer through June, or what was offered, I can discuss that.
Sarah, do you have any?
I'm just assuming that the question was in regard to people working extended school year, right?
I don't think so. I think so what we did, because we had to, as everybody knows, IEPs are legal documents and require signatures. And we spent several weeks getting virtual consent. And as we went through our weekly meetings, it came to my attention, how are we going to get signatures when we get a shelter in place lifted a little bit to obtain that? So what we talked about was is making it voluntary for teachers to come in June as needed to obtain signatures. And they would use a timesheet and keep track of their time and receive their hourly pay. As of now, I believe I only have a handful of case carriers who have needed to do that. Many case carriers were very proactive that last week of school with the minimum days and with the work day, and also became extremely proficient in the new e-signature option for Cyrus. So the majority of our case carriers finished most of the work up by May 29th. So I just have a handful that are collecting signatures. It really depended on the level of which you are serving. For example, an STC preschool teacher does a lot of assessments and a lot of meetings. It's a little bit different than maybe say an STC middle school teacher. It just varies based on the situation. So they were offered the opportunity to voluntarily come in and set up appointments or times to obtain signatures and track their time and turn in a timesheet for the month of June at the hourly rate per contract, which is, I believe, $40.50 an hour.
Thank you, Nadine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nicole, any other comments from the public?
No other comment.
Okay, any board questions or comments before we get a motion? No. Can I get a motion to approve 7.2, please?
Once again, motion to approve.
Neil, can I get a second?
I second.
And Paolo seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, we move on to the 8.0 administration no items, board no items, any future agenda items that the board would like to see?
This is Sarah, and I just wanted to, since I can now talk, I wanted to just clarify some information that I would have presented earlier during my board report. My fellow board members, did you receive the invitation from Janine Guest for the African American Community Leaders Forum for tomorrow? Okay, I'm seeing some stuff. So I just want to make sure people got that. And then,
Alba didn't get it.
Alba, did you get it?
No.
Okay. Alba, I will forward the link to you. It's going to be an online forum tomorrow. I will be also on this, on Monday, I will be attending an online meeting of the Monterey County School Boards Association. Our March meeting was canceled, so I am presuming that we're going to be talking about the workshop for all board members that's usually held in late November at Pebble Beach, and talking about if it's going to go forward or not. So I will update you guys once I have that information. And then lastly, in my union role, through my job as a second grade teacher, I participated in an AFT conference call yesterday, and I want to speak to that. Neil, you had asked earlier about Rosa, the revenue numbers that she was using, and she doesn't have any flexibility with that. Like, we don't get to imagine that the revenue is going to go down. We can only use the revenue numbers that the county instructs us to use, and it's my expectation, because the state adopted budget is going to be very far from reality, in my opinion, because if you guys have been following what's happened with the legislature, they have passed a budget that has full funding for schools on paper, when my expectation is that they're going to have no kind of money to actually make that happen. But it may be that once that budget's passed and Rosa's doing revisions, that then she's forced to put together a budget, imagining that those numbers are real. So we're going to be in a weird situation with people, the taxes coming in late, and so we're going to have to, she's going to have to follow the state guidelines and what revenue is going to be, regardless of whether the revenue is going to be anywhere near that. So I just wanted everybody to have a heads up about that, and just to, it's certainly something that AFT is very aware of and discussing amongst themselves. So we're going to have to do what is best for the district, but we're, in my opinion, going to be operating in a world where the paper doesn't match the reality until this settles down for a while. So just giving everybody a heads up about that. And that's it. Those are just the 3 items that I wanted to touch base with everybody about.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Any other items the board like to see for the future meetings? Okay, can I get a, motion to adjourn at 7:56?
I motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, everybody, will stay safe out there and take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.